Hello there guys, welcome to my YouTube Biology Exam Review series. I'm Professor Brian Ives Araneta, and in this series I'll be discussing 10 random biology questions at a time that may come out in a variety of standardized tests in schools or in professional regulation exams. Here in the Philippines, plenty of review centers are making good money from aspiring test takers. So I hope that I can be of help to those who are quite hard up and can't afford to pay such services. So just subscribe to my channel, hit some like buttons, and you can have all this content for free. Let's start. Number 1. The pons is a structure associated with what functional area of the human brain? The pons, together with the medulla oblongata and the midbrain, constitute the brainstem. It is involved in the control of breathing and can serve as a relay station between the several areas of the brain, for example here between the cerebral cortex and the cerebellum. This makes it mediate various sensory-motor functions such as hearing, taste, and balance. And it also plays a key role in sleeping and dreaming. The cerebrum or cerebral hemispheres actually refer to that entire canopy here that you can see from the outside. And this is considered the seat of your consciousness. The cerebellum is that cauliflower-like structure at the back or posterior to the cerebrum. It's known to be the primary controller of motor functions, especially coordination of muscular movements. On the other hand, the diencephalon sits atop the brainstem, as you can see here, and it cannot be seen from the outside. That's why you have to make this particular section here. Now, it's made up of the epithalamus, the hypothalamus, and the thalamus. Take note that I will focus my discussions on the correct answer only to prevent redundancy later, especially when we encounter items that has a correct answer similar to the choices in a different item. So I hope that's clear at this point and as soon as I expand the series. Now let's proceed to question number 2. Which of the following is true about isotopes? Not all isotopes are radioactive, so only those elements with the atomic numbers greater than 83 has been labeled as radioisotopes because of the unstable nature of their nuclei. So those below 83 most have stable nuclei, although at least one occasional radioisotope is still present. Isotopes differ in the number of their neutrons, so choices B and D are already eliminated here, and E is obviously wrong. Number 3. This primarily contains enzymes for intracellular digestion and has a major role in apoptosis. The lysosomes are most probably one of the most popular and well-known structures in animal cells, and they play a role in intracellular digestion of unused molecules or structures, byproducts, pathogens, and even the entire cell if it's undergoing apoptosis or programmed cell death. Peroxisomes are similar structures, but they contain different enzymes such as catalase and oxidases. They are primarily involved in fat metabolism. Transport vesicles can also carry digestive enzymes, but it's a generalized term used in protein trafficking mediated by the endomembrane system, while the mitochondria has a role in aerobic cellular respiration. Centrioles are way too far from being the correct answer here, and in terms of function, probably it has some role in spindle fiber assembly in animal cells. But take note that plant cells do not have centrioles, but they can still undergo mitosis, so it's not really logical to state that centrioles are required for cell division to occur. Number 4, protein synthesis occurs at what specific location in eukaryotic cells? Ribosomes are the actual sites of protein synthesis, although the RAF ER or endoplasmic reticulum can be indirectly involved in protein synthesis and still because of the ribosomes attached to it. The ribosome is found in all cells, which greatly imply that making proteins is a universal function of all cells, the ultimate goal of all cells. The ribosome is made up of 2 subunits here that essentially reads the nucleotide sequence or information in an mRNA molecule and translates it into a sequence of amino acids. Thylakoid membranes are found in chloroplasts and is the site where you have the light reaction of photosynthesis takes place. While of course the nucleolus is the site for RNA synthesis and where components of the ribosomes are being assembled. Gap junctions, on the other hand, are a specialized intercellular connection in animal cells. And it connects the cytoplasm of two cells to allow exchanges of various molecules, ions, and even electrical impulses through a sort of a regulated gate between cells. 5. During anaerobic respiration, oxygen has a role in So you should be keen enough to see immediately that anaerobic respiration doesn't need oxygen at all. And so all these destructor choices here must be eliminated as fast as possible. Although it's true that oxygen can donate electrons, it can also bind to carbon and form carbon dioxide. And it can also increase ATP production per molecule of glucose. But again, all these things happen in other pathways, not in anaerobic respiration. Also, the insufficiency in oxygen during a strenuous activity usually results to lactic acid formation. So it's not the presence of oxygen that allows its synthesis. Oxygen can actually oxidize lactic acid to carbon dioxide and water. 6. Bacterial DNA are located in a specific location called the The nucleoid is a prominent region in bacterial cells that is readily stained because it's where you can find much of its genetic material. Of course, the nucleus is never a bacterial or a prokaryotic cell structure. The cytoplasm can also be an ambiguous choice here. Mesosomes are convolutions or infoldings in the cell membrane of bacteria that is believed by some experts to house much of its energy machinery since these cells lack mitochondria. Although these are also considered as artifacts by some histologists during the preparation of cells for microscopy. The nucleolus is of course a structure only found in eukaryotic cells. Number 7. Cyclic phosphorylation of ADP to ATP is common in Photosynthesis in primitive organisms such as the cyanobacteria is carried out using sort of a primitive photosystem where electrons are funneled back to the reaction center by the electron transport system. So when light strikes photosystem 1 here, the electrons are raised to a higher energy level and passed on to various electron carriers producing ATP. But then it goes back to the initial state in the same photosystem. Thus, the mechanism shown here is cyclic, so the electrons are not being lost or is being carried by a different carrier. Now, in higher forms of plants, the electrons are not cycled back, but actually they are transferred to another photosystem, and they will eventually be transferred to energy molecules such as NADPH. Archaea and fungi definitely do not perform photosynthesis because they lack chlorophyll, while your bryophytes, your mosses and ferns, conifers are more advanced than the blue-green algae and carry out photosynthesis in a non-cyclic pathway. 8. This theory on the origin of life supports the idea that the extreme conditions of primitive Earth allow the synthesis of organic compounds from inorganic precursors, and this eventually led to the formation of the first cells. Chemical evolution describes the chemical changes on the primitive Earth that give rise to the first forms of life. Now, the first living things on Earth were prokaryotes, with of course the type of cell similar to your present-day bacteria. Now, all forms of life are theorized to have evolved from them. So this was initially supported by two independent theorists, Oparin and Haldane. But of course, their hypothesis is just a hypothesis and not a theory with a wider consensus. So they're definitely out from the choices. Panspermia is a theory that life came from outer space, that cells were carried by meteorites, and when they found that our planet was a conducive environment, they flourished here. On the other hand, gradualism and punctuated equilibrium are concepts on evolution, especially on how species evolve. They do not really focus on the first cells or how the first cells came into being. Number 9, during mitosis, the following cellular activities take place, except mitosis is also one of the most studied topics in biology as well as meiosis. And it is clear that crossing over is a thing in meiosis, that process that forms your recombinant chromosomes. And this actually produces the variation that we can find in the offspring that is a result of sexual reproduction. So it doesn't occur in mitosis because the mother cells here are destined to produce identical daughter cells. And the rest of the choices are all carried out during mitosis. And finally, we have number 10, viruses are non-living entities because if cells are the basic units of life, then viruses are non-living entities because they are not cellular in nature. Simple logic, but let us examine other choices. Yes, they can reproduce by hijacking the host cell's genetic material. They also have their own DNA or RNA. That's why we can categorize viruses as DNA or RNA virus. And yes, definitely they are infectious agents, so you might actually suspect that they are living things. And there are instances when viruses sometimes are enclosed in a membrane. This is because after moving out of their lysed host cells, they carry with them part of the phospholipid bilayer. So it's not always true that they do not possess this membrane. Alright, I'll see you again in part 2 of this series. I will take time to complete 300 items, but I will do my best to upload at least twice a week. So subscribe and hit some like buttons. That's all that matters to a teacher like me. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.